There are some marriages that begin with a kiss. Others begin with a promise. But Olivia and Ethan's marriage began with a contract that had an expiration date. Neither of them expected love to be part of the agreement. Neither expected jealousy. Neither expected heartbreak. And neither expected that, 1 year later, the man who had demanded a temporary wife would be the one begging her not to leave. If you enjoy emotional love stories filled with unexpected twists, stay with this story until the end, because what happened between Olivia and Ethan proved that sometimes the person you never planned to love becomes the person you cannot live without. Olivia Bennett was 27, intelligent, kind, and quietly determined. She worked as an operations manager at one of the Carter family's companies. She wasn't wealthy, but she had built a respectable life through years of hard work. Ethan Carter was 29, the heir to the Carter business empire. He was confident, successful, and known throughout Chicago for being impossible to impress. People admired him. People feared him. But almost nobody truly knew him. Ethan had grown up believing that love was a weakness. His father had taught him that business came first. His mother had left when he was young, and his grandfather had raised him with one lesson repeated again and again. Never depend on anyone. Then, just weeks before Ethan's 30th birthday, his grandfather changed the rules of the family trust. Ethan would inherit control of the company only if he was legally married before his 30th birthday. There was only one problem. Ethan didn't have a girlfriend. He didn't even have anyone he trusted enough to pretend to be one. So one evening, he walked into Olivia's office. She looked up from her computer. "Mr. Carter? Do you have a minute?" Olivia glanced at the clock. "It depends." "On what?" "Whether this is about work." "It isn't." That answer immediately made her suspicious. Ethan closed the door behind him. "I need your help." Olivia leaned back in her chair. "What kind of help?" "I need you to marry me." She stared at him. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Olivia laughed. She thought he was joking. Ethan didn't smile. "You're serious?" "Yes." "Why me?" "Because I trust you." Olivia blinked. "You barely know me." "I know enough." He placed a folder on her desk. Inside was a marriage agreement. 1 year. Separate bedrooms. No romantic expectations. No interference in each other's private lives. And at the end of 12 months, they would divorce quietly. Olivia slowly closed the folder. "You want a wife for 1 year?" "Yes." "And then we're done?" "Yes." "What do I get?" Ethan named a generous amount. Olivia stared at him. "That is a lot of money." "I know. And you're willing to pay me that much just to pretend to be your wife?" "Yes." "Why not marry someone else?" "Because I don't want someone who will use my money or my family name." Olivia looked directly into his eyes. "And you think I won't?" "I know you won't." She was offended. "You know nothing about me. I know you returned a company laptop after finding it in the parking lot." Olivia frowned. "What? You could have kept it." "You didn't." He continued. "I know you refused a promotion when you discovered another employee had been promised the position first." Olivia crossed her arms. "You've been watching me?" "I've been paying attention." She didn't know whether that made her uncomfortable or strangely flattered. Ethan stood. "You can say no." Olivia looked at the agreement again. She needed money. Her younger brother was starting college, and her mother had recently lost her job. But money wasn't the only reason she considered it. There was something about Ethan's expression. He looked like a man asking for help while pretending he didn't need anyone. "Why are you really doing this?" Olivia asked. Ethan's jaw tightened. Because I don't have another choice. She studied him. Then she signed. The wedding was small. No magazines. No cameras. No grand celebration. Just a courthouse ceremony followed by dinner with Ethan's grandfather. His grandfather, Richard Carter, studied Olivia carefully. Then he smiled. "You're not afraid of him?" Olivia glanced at Ethan. "Should I be?" Richard laughed. Ethan didn't. Their marriage began the next morning. Olivia moved into the Carter mansion. The house was enormous. Beautiful. Cold. It had marble floors, high ceilings, expensive paintings, and rooms that looked untouched. Ethan showed her the bedroom. "This is yours." "Where's yours?" "Down the hall." Olivia nodded. "Good." He looked surprised. "What?" "I was worried you'd expect us to share a room." "We have a contract." "Exactly." For the first few weeks, everything remained strictly business. They attended family dinners together. They appeared as a married couple at company events. They smiled for photographs. Then they returned home and went their separate ways. Olivia began noticing small things about Ethan. He worked too much. He skipped breakfast. He drank coffee when he was stressed. He hated thunderstorms. And despite his cold personality, he secretly checked on his grandfather every night. One evening, Ethan came home after midnight. Olivia was sitting in the living room reading. He stopped when he saw her. "You're still awake?" "I was waiting for you." He frowned. "Why?" "You looked upset when you left this morning." Ethan didn't know what to say. Olivia stood. "There's dinner in the kitchen." "You made dinner?" "You hadn't eaten." "I can take care of myself." "I know." She smiled. "I just thought you shouldn't have to." Ethan watched her walk away. For the first time since their marriage began, he felt something strange. Warmth. The next morning, he found a cup of coffee outside his office. No note. Just coffee. He drank it. It was exactly how he liked it. He looked down the hallway. Olivia was nowhere around. Another week passed. Then another. Olivia became part of the house without trying. She helped Ethan's grandfather organize old photographs. She remembered the gardener's birthday. She left flowers in rooms that had been empty for years. The mansion slowly began feeling like a home. Ethan noticed. He didn't understand why it bothered him. One Sunday afternoon, he returned home early. He heard laughter from the kitchen. Olivia was teaching his grandfather how to make pancakes. Richard was covered in flour. Ethan stood in the doorway. Olivia looked at him. "You're home early." Richard pointed at him. "Your wife is better company than you." Ethan laughed. It surprised even him. Olivia stared. She had never seen him laugh like that. Something changed between them that afternoon. Neither mentioned it. But both remembered it. Weeks became months. The contract remained untouched. Yet their lives became increasingly intertwined. Ethan began asking Olivia about her day. He started waiting for her before eating dinner. He noticed when she changed her hairstyle. He noticed when she was tired. And when she laughed with another man at a company event, something inside him tightened. The man was Daniel, one of Olivia's co-workers. He leaned close while telling her a joke. Olivia laughed. Ethan watched from across the room. His jaw tightened. His assistant noticed. "Are you okay?" "Fine." "You don't look fine." Ethan looked at him. "I'm perfectly fine." But he wasn't. Later that night, Ethan asked Olivia about Daniel. Who was that? Daniel? Yes. My coworker. He seems interested in you. Olivia smiled. Maybe. Ethan's expression hardened. Maybe? She laughed. Why do you care? I don't. Then why are you asking? He had no answer. Olivia walked away. Ethan remained standing there. That night, he couldn't sleep. He finally admitted something to himself. He was jealous. And jealousy had no place in a temporary marriage. The realization frightened him. Because there were only 4 months left on their agreement. 4 months. Then Olivia would leave. At first, he had looked forward to that day. Now the thought of it made his chest hurt. Meanwhile, Olivia had begun developing feelings of her own. She never told Ethan. She reminded herself every morning that this marriage had an expiration date. She had signed the contract. She had agreed to leave. So she couldn't allow herself to hope. Then one evening, Ethan came home during a violent storm. Thunder shook the windows. He found Olivia sitting beside the fireplace. She looked up. You're soaked. I forgot my umbrella. She stood and handed him a towel. You'll get sick. Ethan looked at her. Why do you care so much? Olivia paused. Because you're my husband. The words hit him harder than she realized. His wife. Not temporary. Not contractual. His wife. That night, Ethan sat awake for hours. He finally understood what was happening. He wasn't afraid of the contract ending. He was afraid of losing Olivia. And the woman who had entered his house as a temporary wife had quietly become the center of his life. But Olivia still believed their ending was already written. She had no idea that Ethan was about to make a decision that would change everything. Because sometimes love grows quietly. And sometimes you don't recognize it until the person you love begins preparing to leave. The morning after the storm, Ethan woke with one thought in his mind. Olivia. He had spent months convincing himself that their marriage was temporary. Now the word felt unbearable. He walked downstairs and found Olivia preparing breakfast. She looked up. Good morning. Good morning. He stood there longer than necessary. She smiled. Is something wrong? No. Then why are you staring at me? Ethan looked away. Nothing. Olivia returned to cooking. Neither knew that the clock was already counting down. 3 months remained. Then 2. Then 6 weeks. Olivia began making plans for her life after the divorce. She looked at apartments. She updated her resume. She started searching for a place closer to her mother's home. She never told Ethan. She didn't want to make their final months uncomfortable. But Ethan noticed. One afternoon, he walked into her room and saw an apartment brochure on the desk. He picked it up. Olivia entered. What are you doing? What is this? She froze. Nothing. You're looking for an apartment. Our marriage is ending. Ethan's expression changed. Not yet. It will. Why are you so certain? Because that's what we agreed. He stared at her. You really want to leave? Olivia's voice softened. I think it's what you wanted. Ethan couldn't answer. She walked past him. That night, Ethan sat alone in his office. He opened the original contract. He read every line. At the bottom was Olivia's signature. Beside it was his. For the first time, he hated the document. He hated the man who had written it. He hated the version of himself who had believed emotions could be controlled by paperwork. His grandfather found him there. You look miserable. Ethan closed the folder. I'm fine. Richard laughed. You've been saying that your entire life. Ethan looked at him. Grandfather, what happens if I don't inherit the company? You lose it. And if I choose Olivia instead? Richard's expression softened. Then you finally understand what I've been trying to teach you. Ethan frowned. What? Money can replace almost anything except the person you love. Ethan looked down. I think I'm in love with her. Richard smiled. You think? Ethan laughed quietly. I know. Then why are you sitting here? Because she doesn't know. Then tell her. It isn't that simple. Richard looked toward the door. Love rarely is. The next morning, Ethan decided he would tell Olivia. But before he could, his family announced a formal dinner. His father's business partners were attending. Ethan and Olivia had to appear together. During dinner, a woman named Victoria approached Ethan. She was the daughter of one of the family's oldest business partners. She smiled warmly. Ethan, it's been years. He greeted her politely. Olivia watched from across the room. Victoria touched Ethan's arm. I heard you're finally settling down. Ethan glanced at Olivia. Yes. Victoria smiled. She's beautiful. Olivia smiled politely. But something inside her hurt. She had never realized how much she cared until she saw another woman touching Ethan. After dinner, Olivia went outside. Ethan followed. Are you okay? Yes. You're upset. No. Olivia. She turned. Why do you care? He stepped closer. Because you're my wife. She laughed sadly. Temporary wife. His expression changed. Don't call yourself that. Why? Because you're more than that. Her heart skipped. What does that mean? Ethan opened his mouth. Then stopped. He wasn't ready. Not yet. Olivia stepped back. You don't have to say anything. She walked away. The next morning, Ethan decided he would finally tell her everything. But before he could, disaster struck. Olivia received a phone call from the hospital. Her mother had collapsed. She rushed there. Ethan followed. For hours, he sat beside Olivia in the waiting room. He held her hand. He didn't leave. When the doctor finally came out, he explained that her mother was stable but needed further treatment. Olivia broke down. Ethan pulled her into his arms. You're not alone. She cried against his chest. For the first time, she stopped pretending the marriage didn't matter. I was so scared. I know. I thought I was going to lose her. You won't. How can you know? Because I'm not leaving. Olivia looked up. His words stayed with her. I'm not leaving. But they both knew the contract said otherwise. Later that night, Olivia fell asleep in the hospital chair. Ethan watched her. He gently placed his jacket over her shoulders. Then he whispered to himself. I won't let you leave me. But love doesn't always get a smooth path. 2 weeks later, Ethan's grandfather suffered a heart attack. The family gathered at the hospital. Ethan was terrified. He sat beside his grandfather's bed. Richard opened his eyes. Is Olivia here? She is. Good. Richard smiled weakly. Don't lose her. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. I won't. Richard squeezed his hand. Then don't wait. Ethan nodded. But fate had one more surprise. When Ethan returned home, Olivia was standing in the living room. Her suitcase was beside her. He stopped. What happened? She handed him an envelope. What is this? Our divorce papers. Ethan stared at them. Why? You don't have to worry anymore. What are you talking about? Your grandfather's condition made me realize something. She took a breath. You married me because you needed a wife to secure your inheritance. That's not why anymore. But it was. Yes. And now your grandfather is sick. Ethan stepped closer. Olivia, listen to me. No. Her voice trembled. You've been kind to me. You've been wonderful. But I can't stay in a marriage where I don't know whether I'm loved or simply needed. Ethan froze. You think I don't love you? I don't know. He couldn't believe she had reached that conclusion. Olivia, The door opened. Victoria entered. She had come to deliver documents for Ethan's grandfather. She saw the divorce papers. She immediately understood the situation. I'll come back later. Olivia picked up her suitcase. No. Stay. Ethan looked at her. Why? Because maybe this is what you wanted all along. Victoria looked uncomfortable. Olivia, that's not. Please. She turned to Ethan. Just tell me the truth. Ethan took a deep breath. I love you. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I was afraid. Of what? Of hearing you say you don't feel the same. Olivia stared at him. You thought I didn't love you? I didn't know. She laughed through her tears. Ethan, I waited every night for you to come home. He stepped closer. I know. I remembered your coffee. I know. I stayed awake during storms. I know. I thought about you every time you walked through that door. His voice broke. Then why are you leaving? Because I thought you would leave me first. Ethan stood silently. They were both afraid of the same thing. Neither had been brave enough to say it. Victoria quietly placed the documents on the table. Then she looked at Ethan. You should probably tell her what happened. Later that night, Olivia fell asleep in the hospital chair. Ethan watched her. He gently placed his jacket over her shoulders. Then he whispered to himself. I won't let you leave me. But love doesn't always get a smooth path. 2 weeks later, Ethan's grandfather suffered a heart attack. The family gathered at the hospital. Ethan was terrified. He sat beside his grandfather's bed. Richard opened his eyes. Is Olivia here? She is. Good. Richard smiled weakly. Don't lose her. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. I won't. Richard squeezed his hand. Then don't wait. Ethan nodded. But fate had one more surprise. When Ethan returned home, Olivia was standing in the living room. Her suitcase was beside her. He stopped. What happened? She handed him an envelope. What is this? Our divorce papers. Ethan stared at them. Why? You don't have to worry anymore. What are you talking about? Your grandfather's condition made me realize something. She took a breath. You married me because you needed a wife to secure your inheritance. That's not why anymore. But it was. Yes. And now your grandfather is sick. Ethan stepped closer. Olivia, listen to me. No. Her voice trembled. You've been kind to me. You've been wonderful. But I can't stay in a marriage where I don't know whether I'm loved or simply needed. Ethan froze. You think I don't love you? I don't know. He couldn't believe she had reached that conclusion. Olivia, The door opened. Victoria entered. She had come to deliver documents for Ethan's grandfather. She saw the divorce papers. She immediately understood the situation. "I'll come back later." Olivia picked up her suitcase. "No. Stay." Ethan looked at her. "Why?" "Because maybe this is what you wanted all along." Victoria looked uncomfortable. "Olivia, that's not. Please." She turned to Ethan. "Just tell me the truth." Ethan took a deep breath. "I love you." Olivia's eyes filled with tears. "Then why didn't you tell me?" "Because I was afraid." "Of what?" "Of hearing you say you don't feel the same." Olivia stared at him. "You thought I didn't love you?" "I didn't know." She laughed through her tears. "Ethan, I waited every night for you to come home." He stepped closer. "I know. I remembered your coffee. I know. I stayed awake during storms. I know. I thought about you every time you walked through that door." His voice broke. "Then why are you leaving?" "Because I thought you would leave me first." Ethan stood silently. They were both afraid of the same thing. Neither had been brave enough to say it. Victoria quietly placed the documents on the table. Then she looked at Ethan. "You should probably tell her what happened. And I rejected a proposal from her father this morning." "What proposal?" "He offered to secure my inheritance permanently if I agreed to marry Victoria." Olivia's eyes widened. "You rejected it?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I don't want an inheritance if the price is losing you." Silence. Ethan stepped closer. "I could lose the company." He looked directly into her eyes. "I could lose the mansion." He took the divorce papers from her hand. "But I can't lose you." Olivia began crying. "Ethan." He held the papers. "I thought I needed a wife to inherit my family's empire." He tore the papers in half. "But somewhere along the way, I stopped needing a wife." He took her hand. "I started needing you." Olivia couldn't speak. Ethan continued. "I don't want a temporary marriage." His voice shook. "I want a real one." She looked at him. "What if you regret it?" "I'll regret losing you for the rest of my life if I let you walk away." Olivia closed her eyes. For months, she had dreamed of hearing those words. But now that she had them, she realized love wasn't about the perfect confession. It was about what came after. She opened her eyes. "Then prove it." Ethan nodded. "I will." But the story wasn't over. Because loving Olivia meant more than stopping the divorce. Ethan had to confront the family that had taught him love was weakness. His father was furious. "You're throwing away the company for her?" Ethan remained calm. "No. You'll lose everything." Ethan looked at him. "Then I'll build something of my own." His father laughed. "You don't understand how the world works." Ethan replied quietly. "I understand it better than I ever have." He walked away. For the first time in his life, Ethan had chosen something that money couldn't buy. Olivia. But she wasn't ready to simply accept his love. She wanted proof. Not flowers. Not expensive gifts. Not promises, she wanted consistency. And Ethan began giving her exactly that. He showed up. He listened. He asked what she wanted. He stopped making decisions for her. He learned that love was not possession. It was partnership. Slowly, Olivia began to trust him. Then one evening, Ethan took her to the place where they had first met. Her old office. The building was almost empty. He stood beside her. "This is where I asked you to become my wife." Olivia smiled. "And you offered me a contract." "Yes." He took a small box from his pocket. "This time, There is no contract. He opened it. Inside was a simple ring. I can't promise we'll never argue. Olivia smiled. I hope we do sometimes. I can't promise life will always be easy. I know. I can't promise I'll never make another mistake. She looked at him. But I can promise I'll never run from one. Olivia's eyes filled with tears. Ethan. Will you marry me again? She laughed softly. We're already married. Then marry me for real. Olivia looked at the ring. Then at him. And finally smiled. Yes. But neither of them knew that the greatest challenge was still ahead. Because when Ethan's father discovered that Olivia had rejected the family's money and Ethan had chosen her anyway, he made one final move. A move that would test whether their love was strong enough to survive without the protection of wealth. And this time, Ethan would have to prove that Olivia wasn't simply the woman he wanted beside him. She was the woman he was willing to stand beside when everything else disappeared. 3 weeks after Ethan proposed, everything changed. The Carter family company lost one of its biggest investors. Then another. Within days, newspapers were reporting that Ethan's leadership was being questioned. His father had stepped away from the board. The family fortune was suddenly unstable. Ethan's friends warned him. Take the deal. Marry Victoria. Protect the company. But Ethan refused. He had already spent most of his life believing that success meant having control. Now he understood that success could also mean having the courage to lose everything rather than betray yourself. Olivia watched him struggle. One evening, she found him sitting alone in his office. The room was dark. Only the city lights came through the window. You haven't eaten. Ethan looked up. I'm not hungry. You said that yesterday. I have a lot to think about. Olivia walked over and placed a plate on his desk. Then think while you eat. He smiled. You always do that. Do what? Take care of me. Olivia sat beside him. Maybe because you finally let me. Ethan looked at her. That sentence stayed with him. He realized how much his life had changed. Before Olivia, he had never allowed anyone close. He believed dependence meant weakness. Now he understood something completely different. Trust wasn't weakness. It was courage. The next morning, Ethan made a decision. He sold several luxury properties. He gave up his expensive car. He moved out of the mansion. Olivia was shocked. You don't have to do this. I know. Then why? Because I want to build a life that belongs to us. They moved into a smaller house outside the city. It wasn't enormous. It didn't have marble floors. It didn't have 10 bedrooms. But it had a warm kitchen. A small backyard. And a living room where Olivia could hear Ethan laughing. One Saturday morning, they cooked breakfast together. Ethan burned the pancakes. Olivia laughed. You're terrible at this. I own a company. That doesn't mean you can cook. He smiled. I can learn. Olivia looked at him. You really have changed. Ethan placed a hand over hers. You changed me. No. He shook his head. You showed me who I could be. Olivia smiled. And that was when she realized something important. She had entered the marriage believing she would teach Ethan how to love. Instead, they had taught each other. She taught him that vulnerability was safe. He taught her that love could be chosen every day. But healing was not instant. Sometimes Olivia still woke up afraid. Afraid Ethan would suddenly change his mind. Afraid that one morning she would find another contract on the table. Ethan noticed. One night, she woke from a nightmare. He found her sitting in bed. Olivia? She looked at him. I'm okay. You're crying. She wiped her face. I had a dream you left. Ethan sat beside her. I'm here. She looked at him. What if one day you stop loving me? He took her hand. Then I'll tell you the truth. She stared at him. I won't disappear. His words brought tears to her eyes. I don't need you to promise you'll never change. Ethan listened. I need you to promise you'll talk to me when you do. I promise. That conversation changed their relationship more than any grand romantic gesture could have. They learned to speak. When they were angry, they talked. When they were afraid, they talked. When they disagreed, they stayed. They stopped trying to win arguments. They started trying to understand each other. Months later, Ethan received an unexpected letter. It was from his grandfather. Richard's health had improved. He asked Ethan to visit. When Ethan arrived, Richard looked at him proudly. You look different. Ethan smiled. I feel different. Richard nodded. Where is Olivia? At home. Bring her next time. Ethan looked surprised. You approve? Richard laughed. I approved the moment she walked into this family and made you laugh. Ethan smiled. I almost lost her. But you didn't. I almost lost everything. Richard looked at him seriously. No, Ethan. He pointed toward Ethan's heart. You almost lost yourself. Ethan became quiet. Richard continued. Your greatest inheritance was never this company. What was it? The ability to love without fear. Ethan's eyes became wet. I wish I'd understood that earlier. Richard smiled. Most people don't. When Ethan returned home, he found Olivia in the backyard. She was planting flowers. He stood there watching her. She looked up. What? Nothing. Why are you staring? I was thinking. That's dangerous. He laughed. Then he walked toward her. I love you. Olivia smiled. I know. I don't say it enough. You say it plenty. I want to say it more. She put down the gardening gloves. Their story had started with an agreement. But it had ended with something neither of them could have planned. Real love. The kind that survives disappointment. The kind that grows through difficult conversations. The kind that doesn't disappear when money disappears. The kind that stays. And perhaps that was the greatest lesson Ethan and Olivia discovered. Sometimes we enter someone's life for one reason and leave with an entirely different purpose. Sometimes the person we think is temporary becomes permanent. Sometimes the person who scares us the most is the person who teaches us how to trust again. And sometimes love doesn't arrive like fireworks. It arrives quietly. A cup of coffee outside an office. A meal waiting after a long day. A hand held during a hospital visit. Someone staying when leaving would be easier. A person saying, I'm here, and proving it again tomorrow. And again the next day. And again after the argument. And again after the mistake. That is what Ethan finally understood. Love wasn't about finding someone perfect. It was about finding someone worth choosing. Again and again. Olivia had never been his temporary wife. She had only been temporary in his mind. Because from the moment he truly saw her, he realized something that changed his entire life. He didn't want her for a year. He didn't want her because of an inheritance. He didn't want her because a contract demanded it. He wanted her because life without her no longer felt like the life he wanted. And Olivia learned something too. She had once believed that loving Ethan meant risking heartbreak. But eventually she understood that refusing to love because you are afraid of pain can also become a kind of prison. Real courage is not knowing that you will never be hurt. Real courage is knowing you could be hurt and still choosing to love wisely. They never forgot how their story began. But they stopped allowing the beginning to define the ending. Their marriage was no longer temporary. Their love was no longer conditional. And their future no longer had an expiration date. Years after their original agreement had ended, Ethan and Olivia still kept one tradition. Every year, on the date they first signed the contract, they returned to the small restaurant where they had celebrated their courthouse wedding. They ordered the same dessert. They talked about how strange their first year had been. And Ethan always asked the same question. Would you do it again? Olivia always smiled. I'd change one thing. What? I would make you fall in love with me faster. Ethan laughed. You think I wasn't already falling? She raised an eyebrow. You were very slow. He reached across the table and took her hand. Then I guess I had to make sure it was forever. Olivia smiled. Outside, the city lights reflected against the windows. Inside, two people who had once entered a marriage expecting an ending were celebrating another year together. No contracts. No deadlines. No conditions. Just love. And sometimes, that is the most beautiful ending a story can have. Not a perfect life. Not a life without pain. But a life where two people choose each other even after they discover that love is not always easy. Because the greatest love stories are not always about two people who never hurt each other. Sometimes they are about two people who learn how to stop running. How to listen. How to forgive. How to grow. How to stay. And if this story teaches us anything, it is this. Never measure your worth by someone else's inability to recognize it. Never confuse fear with truth. And never assume that a difficult beginning means you cannot have a beautiful ending. Olivia entered Ethan's life as a temporary wife. But she became his home. And Ethan, the man who once believed he needed nobody, finally discovered that the greatest strength in his life was not his fortune, his company, or his family name. It was the courage to love one person completely. And to keep choosing her. Every single day.